The third vision of the Jewish state was simply that of the state as a refuge. Theodor Herzl explains,
"The idea which I have developed is a very old one. It is the restoration of the Jewish state. The world resounds with outcries against the Jews, and these outcries have awakened the slumbering idea."
This vision was more revolutionary than it might appear. Jews had transformed their powerlessness into a moral principle. Herzl was asking Jews to again seek political power. General Zionists, the term did not come into use until 1907, envisioned the Jewish state as an advanced industrial and liberal Western democracy. Like Switzerland, it would make up for its lack of raw materials with scientific expertise. Historian Howard Sacher writes,
General Zionism, for many decades, was not really a party at all, without any particular commitment of its own beyond loyalty to Zionism itself. It simply embraced those members of the organization who did not belong to any specific ideological grouping.
The biggest challenge came from socialist Zionists, who tended to be idealistic 18-year-olds who moved to the land of Israel. General Zionists were their middle-aged parents who remained in the diaspora. Even in the diaspora, General Zionism's strength diminished. This despite counting among its numbers some of the most prominent Zionists. At the 12th Zionist Congress in 1921, they were 70% of the total delegates. A decade later, they numbered only 36%. That the field was not left even more to socialist Zionists was due to the rise of the revisionists, led by the charismatic Vladimir Jabotinsky. The Revisionist Party, a relative latecomer, was founded in 1925. Initially, it drew its members from general Zionist ranks, though its success was limited as most general Zionists viewed it as too militant. Revisionism should nevertheless be considered a branch of general Zionism. It appealed specifically to those general Zionists who recognized in the 1920s, and still more in the 1930s, that the need for a Jewish refuge had become acute, the need on which Herzl's Zionism had been built. Jabotinsky was a general Zionist, as Sacher describes them. He envisioned a liberal democratic Jewish state without class or other divisions. What set apart Jabotinsky was his reaction to the spirit of retreat that began to pervade the Zionist movement, personified by, as he saw it, the weak leadership of Dr. Chaim Weizmann. Weizmann and the general Zionists had no answer to the hostility of the British administration in Palestine, no answer to Arab uprisings and terror against Jews, no pushback to the British decision to remove Transjordan from the area originally designated to become a Jewish state. In place of the labor myth which called for the conquest of the land through toil, the revisionists stressed a martial ethos. In place of labor's perfect society, revisionists offered Malchut Yisrael, the kingdom of Israel with its associations of ancient glory. The revisionists refused to accept the loss of Transjordan. Jabotinsky captured the idea in a popular ditty.
Shte gadot liarden, zu shalanu zu kam ken. There are two sides of the Jordan River. This is ours, and that is also.
Jabotinsky was not initially opposed to socialism. Like most general Zionists, he believed what was important was that a Jewish state be created. What kind of a state could be decided later. Over time, however, Jabotinsky became convinced that socialist doctrines impeded Zionism's chief goal, the absorption of the largest number of Jews into Eretz Israel. In one of the polemics that earned him the title Enemy of Labor, Jabotinsky said,
If the obese sarcoma called histatrut, which grows daily fatter and middle-class gifts, will be permitted to go on swelling, it will stifle everything that is still alive in Zionism.
Revisionism never succeeded in capturing the Zionist movement. Vladimir Jabotinsky died in 1940, and many of his followers, who were in Poland, perished in the Holocaust. With statehood, the heirs of the general Zionists were divided into three main parties. The first two, the progressives and general Zionists, represented small tradesmen, professionals, and farmers. The leader of the progressives was Pinchas Rosen, who became Israel's first Minister of Justice. The General Zionists were led by Peretz Bernstein, who had edited Haboker, a paper strongly critical of Labour's economic policies. Cherut, or the Freedom Party, represented the heirs of Jabotinsky. It was led by Menachem Begin, who had headed the underground Irgun. Although the three parties largely agreed on economic issues, the progressives and general Zionists were not in sympathy with revisionism's territorial claims or with the Irgun's earlier pre-state militant policies against the British. What eventually drove the general Zionists and Cherut together in 1965 was the recognition that neither alone could pose a serious challenge to Labour's political domination. Peretz Bernstein would oversee the alliance with Cherut. In 1969, for the first time, voters could choose a single party offering a developed alternative to socialist Zionism on both economic and foreign policy. In 1977, the Likud, as it was now called, finally toppled Labour, still reeling from its failures in the 1973 Yom Kippur War. The Likud's platform stated,
Judea and Samaria will not be turned over to any foreign rule. Between the sea and the Jordan will be only Israeli sovereignty.
Although it looked as if general Zionism would be swallowed by the activist heirs of Jabotinsky, events developed differently. Menachem Begin not only withdrew from the Sinai Peninsula in 1979, but more shocking to many of his followers, laid the legal groundwork for Arab rule in Judea and Samaria. Today, under Netanyahu, the Likud supports a two-state solution, indicating its readiness for further withdrawals. The new Israeli hero is not the kibbutznik, but the entrepreneur. Israel has more companies on NASDAQ than any other foreign country bar China. Although few would have imagined this in the decades of socialist domination, it is the vision of general Zionism which has come closest to realization.